On today's show, we have John Spaugy
Hello.
and friend of the show, Brent Thurman.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me today.
John is the CEO and founder of Agent Brokers United. He is also the co-founder and president of S&R Insurance Group and has nearly 30 years of experience as an insurance professional. I am super excited, John, to have you here. And fans of the show will remember Brent Thurman, who is the principal agent and owner, Keystone Insurance Services in Provo, Utah. And you could not tell by looking at him, but 20 years of experience in the insurance industry and a whole career before that, which is my secret to keep. Both gentlemen are veterans of insurance conferences, which is why they are here today, because we want to talk about Agent Brokers United, which is a pretty special show, and then give some people some advice on how to survive conferences in general. I'm going to dive in, and I have some questions for John about Agent Brokers United. And so, can you give us a quick, high-level summary of what the event is, what's on the agenda for it?
Yeah, so we started Agent Brokers United a couple years ago. Before that, it was big independent group, and we primarily were for California agents only. We went national. Actually, the big I was like, "You're not going to use big and independent together." So I said, "Okay, we'll change it to Agent Brokers United." The main focus of the convention is education and networking and getting agents to the right companies and the companies to agents. So that's the key of the conference. Again, we have every year we have phenomenal speakers to come in. We have insurance coaches. We have motivational speakers. The last couple of years, we brought in some pretty big name stars to come in and speak. This year, we have Sean Lights Out Merriman. I'm a Raider fan, so I will not be doing his introduction. I see the Bo Jackson back there. He actually came to our show last year too, just as an attendee, and then we had him speak this year. But again, the focus of the convention is just connecting people. If we can connect 300-400 people in one place and get them to a company that's going to help them out, or just talking to your peers, especially right now with the way that the market is. Sometimes we just need a little tap on the shoulder that everything's going to be okay, and that's what the event does. So
Yeah, and I love that. I think that insurance being such a relationship driven business, gathering together is such a fundamental piece of that. So over the course, how many days is A.B.U? How long of an event is it?
it ends up being 4 days.
Oh
Actually,
wow.
the first day, when my really good friend, and you guys know him well from HawkSoft, Chris LeJeune, he passed away shortly after we were in a conference in Florida. And at his funeral, I was like, how can I honor Chris? Like, he's meant so much to me, like my entire career. So we started the Chris LeJeune Memorial Golf Tournament. So that's on the first day. That's the 29th, which is a Monday. And then the trade show is actually Tuesday and Wednesday. Morning is the speakers and the educational portion of it. The trade show is open for 4 hours. I always tell agents, like, ask questions to the vendors when you go through, and there's no way you're going to get through a trade show in one day. So we have that for 2 days, and then this year we're going to be doing an industry update on the final day.
Oh, fantastic. So what type of sessions do you guys have outside of the trade show floor? What type of lessons can people learn?
So it's kind of interesting what's happening now, because again, we want to make sure that vendor time is vendor time,
Mm-hmm.
and you have time to go speak to the companies that can help. So we don't have as many breakout sessions as we used to, because we don't want to interfere with the show. So most of the event is actually the speakers that are coming in. And a lot of them, I mean, man, you listen to these speakers, like, they told you, a lot of times they've told you where this industry was going to go in that, and I mean, me personally, like, I just love doing the shows and attending shows and just trying to stay on top of the trends that are happening. Our industry
Hmm.
changes so fast and so quickly. I just think the agents that complain usually the most are the ones that just sit in their offices and try to do the same old thing and just are
Yeah.
not on top of what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go back, I know the folks at HawkSoft are grateful for how you guys are honoring Chris LeJeune's legacy. He definitely loved golf. I was always extremely jealous of the setup he had in his home, his own little virtual driving range. Um, yeah, that's really fantastic. How does that tournament, how is it structured? Is it a
You know what? It's
scramble or?
it's really good. I mean, being having the show in Vegas, we end up having to take buses. You can call them party bus if you want to, but we have to take buses out to the event. We actually have Tamara LeJeune.
Oh, yeah.
We have her come out to the event as well. So she's at the golf tournament. Uh, I talk about Chris and what he's meant to me. Um, Hawksoft's always a big supporter. Um, and it's not that serious of a golf tournament. So, if you're coming out with scratch golfers in that, you're definitely going to win. Even if you're coming out with probably a 15 handicap golfer, you might win. Uh, but it really is just set up to get us all together
Yeah,
and take a moment to remember Chris as well.
I love that. Um, so then that's a pretty unique thing. To start with, that type of respect and attention to maybe some history in the industry, important people that have passed. What else about ABU sets it apart from other insurance conferences?
I think the big thing, again, we've been doing it for 14 years, and a lot of the people from California, especially, already knew about the event and kind of how we try to bring people together. So it's really nice to bring that on a more national level.
Mm,
That came about mainly because I started going into national Facebook groups and national
hmm
conventions myself. And I just wanted the people to be able to participate in ours the same as we do in others. One of the things that seemed to happen, like last year, there was just a ton of events. So like
mm,
trying to stand out against the others, it's kind of interesting. It's like almost being a traditional convention is standing out
mm.
now
Yeah,
because
for
everybody
sure.
changed it so much. Um, and I like the traditional format
Yeah.
personally. Um, I like the time to have with the vendors that are actually there
Hmm.
and get to really get to know them. I really love like events that are 2 or 3 days because the conventions are so much more than just listening to speakers and
Hmm.
attending the show. I think that's one of the things that kind of makes us a little bit different too. There's a lot of camaraderie between the group and the agents and the companies that come out. So again, there's a lot of business that gets done. You know, I hate to say it, but at the bars, at the
Yeah.
lounges, at the clubs,
The dance
people know
floor.
me. They know I like to dance. So uh, we're going to be out there dancing for sure. Um, but there's just in the hallways, in the elevators, there's a lot of relationships, really
Yeah.
meaningful relationships that happen not just inside the show. And that's why I always encourage people, like, yeah, stay at the hotel, spend a few days there. And that was one more nice thing that happened when I had it in California for so many years. You'd have a lot, now that we're at a destination location, you'd have a lot of people that would come in for a day and leave. And that's
Mm,
not what our show was set up to be.
hmm.
Our show really was set up to make that 2 or 3 day event happen. Um, and I think that's probably one of the things I admire most about moving it out of California and not just having it be a California based show.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we could have did a day show and, you know, got it over with. I didn't say
Yeah,
it that way.
absolutely.
It's not like these shows are bad. It's
Yeah.
just, shows serve different purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly kind of love the way you put it as like Agent Brokers United stands out by being somewhat of a traditionalist in the structure, it sounds like, and not not forcing the attendees to adapt to a new way of doing things. It's like you are perfecting the form, it sounds like, where you're saying like, no, this is good, let others experiment, maybe learn from them a bit, but in terms of like generating an environment where people can mingle and discover solutions, discover different ways of thinking, that's kind of what you're setting the show up to be.
Yep, that's by purpose or not purpose. Like you put it
Yeah.
in good words. Like yeah, that's that's what we're trying to do.
Um, and so you mentioned kind of how you've been able to grow the show, expanding past California, um, as a born and raised Oregonian. I appreciate you giving me an excuse not to go to California, although it's a state I'm learning to love, for sure. I know that your agency is there, so I won't besmirch it too much. Um, but I'd love to know, you know, John, your take, and Brent maybe, because I know that you spent some time in Vegas during the pre discussion. There was a lot of good conversations about shows to see and where to eat. And so, John, I'd love to know, outside of the conference, like if someone's coming a day early or staying a day late, what are some fun activities to do um, once the conference
So
ends each day?
Vegas has about just about everything that you want. I actually live out here as well as California, and I mean, there's a lot of people that just do Vegas different, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like really cool surrounding areas that you can go out to and stuff like that if you wanted to explore. I mean, you can shoot guns, you can ride doom buggies, you can hike, you can go up to Mount Charleston,
Mm.
you can go out to Red Rock. There's a ton of golf out here, and then obviously the Strip has a ton of things that you can do as well. So you know, not saying it is the best family place to bring people,
Sure.
but there is a lot here that you could do with your family. And I think
Yeah.
that's the one nice thing when I looked at the Rio this time is I mean, man, they have so much stuff in there. Like you could just stay in the Rio and you would still be okay with your family and stuff like that without having to go out. There's like 3 or 4 shows. Penn and Teller is still there. There's adult entertainment there for the ladies. There's there's things. The lounge is probably one of the nicest lounge or bars
Mm-hmm.
in the city. Hopefully, it'll be completely redone. They just redid did the pool. There's a ton of restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not even touching the strip.
Yeah.
Like, like, and then on
You're
the
just
strip,
one hotel,
there's
right? Yeah.
everything.
Um, I'd love to know for both of you the best show to see in Vegas. If someone's coming in for the conference and they can see one thing, um, what should they be aiming for?
I I I I would go to Ka or go to O. Like, if
Mm.
you haven't been to either one of those shows, I would definitely do that. Um,
Are those the
everyone,
Cirque du Soleil?
yeah, those are
Yeah.
Cirque du Soleil. Like, I mean, I've seen the majority of the shows on the strip, and like those are still like really good ones to go to. So
What about you, Brent? What's
I've
your
seen the
go-to
Cirque du Soleil.
recommendation?
It's dang fun. High energy, and I haven't been recently, but growing up. By the way, some of the best kids are born out of California, just so you know.
I
So
I know,
there's a
I
lot of
know,
good
I
stuff.
know.
Uh, no, but there's good shows. I love music, and
Mm,
so you can pretty much like if you Google it, you can find the type of music live that you're looking for there. And I love
mm,
live music. I love live concerts, and there's big headliners there. There's smaller, um, artists that pay homage to other artists and things like that.
mm-hmm.
There's just about everything that you can possibly want in Vegas. So for
Yeah.
and
better or for
don't
worse.
and sorry to speak over you, but and
No,
don't
go.
underestimate Fremont Street because it's a complete
Sure.
and total mess. It's a wreck, but it's super entertaining and causes nothing to watch people.
That is, I will admit, I'm not. I'm not a gambler. My claim to fame is, despite how frequently I travel to Las Vegas for work, I have never once gambled a penny in a casino. I don't. I totally fine form of entertainment. It's done responsibly. It's not my cup of tea. It gives me anxiety. And so that's 100% what I do. Is I just people watch, and I don't know. It's just it's crazy sometimes. It's just I definitely have been like, oh, you were asleep on that bench when I went to bed last night. Like, I hope you're all right, type of thing. But and like I also agree. Like, um, Vegas is the I love the architecture. I love like just driving around and seeing there's a castle in the middle of Las Vegas. Like it's stunning. The the Sphere I think is a really impressive new addition to the scenery. But then you just if you look beyond the strip, Nevada is gorgeous. What a pretty state. So I definitely hiking, driving around. Um, I've heard some great things about that. One of the things I do know very well in Las Vegas is eating. Because it's such a destination, it has some of the best food in the United States. Um, so, do you guys have a favorite place to eat? Like, if someone needs, let's think about this. Um, at the event hotel, which is the Rio, correct?
Yes.
So, if someone needs a quick bite to eat, what's the best quick bite to eat inside the Rio?
You know what? They have Guy Fieri's taco place
Oh,
or
nice. Yeah.
Mexican place that they just now opened up. Um, and then they have a ton in there. So like last year we did Tropicana, and unfortunately Tropicana, is not going to be there anymore. But a lot at that time, a lot of the restaurants weren't open, so you actually had to
Mm-hmm.
go out and go over to like the MGM and that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not going to be the issue at the Rio. And then if you want a really great experience, they have the Voodoo Steak House. That's going to be up on the roof as well. So just the views there is going to be amazing. And then if you want to go out local, if you go to Chinatown, there's Fuku
Yeah.
Burger. It's absolutely amazing. That's in Chinatown. And then a new spot for us is that we've been going to is Capo's. It's like a mobster place. It's a speakeasy. It's Italian food. It's like Frank Sinatra music when you
Yeah.
get in there. But there's a ton. Like I said, if you just like Google it or look it up, like Vegas really does have just about anything that you'd want to do. Like it does. Their entertainment
Absolutely.
is off the charts. So you're not going to have an issue. Like you can stay in a hotel and you're going to be fine. You can look at like local stuff, you'll be fine. And then of course the strip. One word of advice I will give you if you do decide to play, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably going to be here 4 days. You're going to lose.
Yeah.
It's too much
Statistically.
time. So my suggestion is you pick a day and
Yeah.
support the city.
Yeah. Sure. um,
Consider it your
yeah.
donation.
Yeah.
And I think some great advice. Set a dollar value limit. Set a time limit. And I think that's a good mentality to come in with. The house always wins. So if you're up, you walk away. Um, but yes, I definitely like. I know the fun of playing and winning at cards. I totally get it. But I have expensive hobbies, so I gotta pick and choose my battles. And I just picked up golf, so it's risky. Um, I want to shift now a little broader because I hope people listening to this, we're going to get it out ahead of the A.B.U conference for 2024. I definitely encourage all of our listeners to check it out. If you can make it out, please do. I have firsthand experience. John Spaugy is a very fun person to be around, and I'm kind of jealous that I didn't um, put the dots together soon enough to like claim a spot from the HawkSoft team going out there. I'll have to make that my 2025 mission. Um, but I'd like to turn and explore conferences in general. And so, Brent, you have some pretty good experience with attending conferences. You're the conference chair for the HawkSoft User Group National Conference this year. That was just a smashing success in Carlsbad, California. So this is being released in the future. Uh, positive, positive ideation. No, we know it's going to be great. So, Brent, what value do you find as an agency owner, as a principal? What value do you find in attending industry conferences like A.B.U?
That's a tough question because I mean I can answer it for me easy, but I can't
Yeah.
answer for everybody and say that this is going to be for everybody. For me personally, I love attending shows and realize I grew up in California where my dad was an agency owner and we would go every single year down to Palm Springs, a big conference, and it was a big deal. My dad was really invested in relationships, and John's been down there. And I have to brag on John for just a quick second, and because he was a part of our family agency growing up, and I don't know if I forget something, John, tell me, but John was in the Navy and came out and was a commissioned agent. He then later did customer service on the company side. He was in underwriting, marketing rep for a few companies, both independent, captive, eventually agency owner, and today a champion of networking and conferences. And so, of all the people I've ever met in the industry, John has the probably the broadest perspective of anybody that I know in the um, insurance circles today. And I think all the good success that comes his way, he deserves because he's put in the time. He's done it, and he's been a huge example to us and to his parents too. His late dad Ken, who was my manager growing up, and his mom Connie, all three of them were involved in the agency that I got to grow up in and kind of see examples and things kind of happening. And so it's fun to see conferences like this because I have a deep understanding of where John came from and his love for the industry and people in general. Everybody that knows John knows he's a fun person. So if you just want to have fun, just go anyway. But outside of that, there's a huge broad perspective that you can gain from shows in general. I have a particular appreciation for shows that are put on by people in the industry
Mm.
currently, the ones actually grinding it out on a daily basis and fighting the good fight along with all the rest of the attendees. And that's not to say you can't get value in other conferences that don't have that background, but me personally, I have a particular appreciation for that because I feel like there's a genuine desire for all of us to kind of like level up a little bit and learn
Mm.
more. So I think shows have been getting a little bit of a bad rap just because there were so many of them in the last few years. And I think there's a little bit of fatigue from those that go to a lot of shows. And I've heard even, some prominent podcasters say, there's kind of a diminishing return the more shows that you go to. And I can't argue with that, except that if we shift our perspective a little bit on the things that we're looking for, then maybe we could get value that we haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's always big buzzwords. If it's CRM one year and then it's VAs one year and whatever it is, markets and hard market and what are we going to do? But I think using the tools and things in our agency and relationships that we have and figuring out how to use those better, I find more value today in the hard market
Mm.
from going to the shows and networking with other agents and finding
Mm-hmm.
out what they're doing. Because if you can learn from 10 people, how much faster could you pivot in your agency and maybe try a few things that have stuck, a few things that have worked? Even if it's just an idea of, hey, we tried this on Google and it was like a smashing success.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you that huge, you could get one little grain of insight in going to a show like that that catapults you forward in a
Yeah,
really good way. So huge value in those.
absolutely. Did Jeff put you both up to trying to make me cry? Like I'm sitting here, I'm just like, I got John talking about Chris LeJeune. Brent, I got you giving like the best introduction for John. And I'm just like, what is going on? What did I do to you two? Recovering my composure and back to the questions that I prepared to bug you guys with. A.B.U has a big exhibit hall floor. Kind of question for Brent, but John, also feel free to join in. So, how do you effectively interact with salespeople on an exhibit hall floor? Like, do you have any advice for agents that maybe get intimidated by like, I don't want to go through this meat grinder. But how what's a better perspective to have in interacting with on the exhibit hall floor?
The big thing is to take your time going through the exhibit hall floor, and don't just be there with your bag like picking up trinkets. Actually ask them what they do, and how it could help your agency. Talk to the reps that are in there, because even if they're at a company that maybe can't help you now, you build that rapport. And that, like, my whole career has been off of relationships. You build that rapport with them, and then they go to the hottest company out there, or the best tool that you can have. Like, really talk to them and get to know them.
What do you think about that, Brent?
Yeah, I think genuine curiosity can't be overstated. And I tell that to my team here, or whether they're sales or service. Like, if you're not genuinely curious, if you have a spouse and that spouse came home and was like, "Man, it was a rough day," and you're like, "Oh, that sucks. What's for dinner?" And you don't even ask them what happened, what's wrong. That's that missing component of genuine curiosity. And conferences too, I think that type of attitude helps you as the attendee a bunch, because I don't think anybody goes into a conference saying I'm gonna start teaming up with 20 new, vendor partners. But if you don't know what one of those companies does, you're missing a piece, even just in your knowledge, so that you can rule something out or include something in, or at the very least, have kind of that confirmation that you're on the right track. So I think that genuine curiosity as you're going around and talking to the vendors and being candid with them. I think sometimes we, in our efforts to be nice, can accidentally lead the vendors on in, nodding our head and, "Oh, it's so good to talk to you. Yeah, it's awesome. Let's catch up. Yeah, I'll talk to you after." Like, I think it goes a long way for an attendee talking to a vendor partner to say, "Hey, man, I really appreciate this. Probably not something I'm interested in talking about, but I'm really glad to know what you guys do." Goes a long, long way, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if this is jumping ahead with another question you had,
Mm-hmm.
but from a vendor standpoint, I think the biggest thing that vendors could do um, when they are talking to attendees is to ask more questions than they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we have, as a vendor, we might have a tendency to jump into assumptions. Like, man, we saved this company 15% on their time and all this kind of stuff. It's no different than, an insurance commercial that's like, we'll save everybody X amount of dollars. It's the same type of thing. So I think genuine curiosity from both standpoint, and sometimes a vendor might look at an attendee and say, man, it's so good talking to you. It doesn't sound like our product's going to fit with you,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, let's keep in touch and that kind of thing. So I think genuine interactions in business in general are are a good step forward, and knowing what's out there. I think if we walk away with a broader perspective of what's
Mm-hmm.
available to us and what direction things are moving, like, you might see a shift in the industry 3 years before it actually takes root. And so you might be prepared for that a little more so just by doing that.
Absolutely. Follow up on that. Um, how do you so when you're having those genuine interactions, and like we can control how we engage in a conversation like that. So um, there's a certain amount of trust that the folks you're interacting with hopefully are being genuine in return. But from your perspective, how do you determine hype from substance while walking around an exhibit hall floor? Because on a certain level, to be honest about a process like HawkSoft, we're a SaaS company. We need sales to, keep our lights on. And I'll never begrudge salespeople from that motivation. It's like sales is how we progress this process forward. So how do you determine what is hype from what is substance in those conversations you're having?
On me, again, I think it's listening uh, on both ends, and realizing, like, you may have the best thing out there, but it may not be the best thing out there for me now, and being okay with that. Like, on both sides, I think it's just the communication of, this is where my agency's at, this is what I'm looking for. And on the company side, it's the same thing, realizing, like, hey, this may not be the product for you now, whether it's financial wise or It's usually a lot of times for business owners, it's not financial wise, it's usually time wise. And if I can implement this in the office when I'm implementing so many other things. So I think the important thing is just be clear with your communications. Um, and then you'll find out the difference between the hype and that. As long as you're not a compulsive like buyer, and if you are, like, it's real easy to make a lot of mistakes in this industry because you're buying everything, but your staff is using nothing.
Hmm. So for listeners in the non-audio version, Brent raised his hand a moment ago, and was nodding along to John's advice. So Brent, as a recovering shiny object agency owner, um, how do you approach this? How are you separating hype from substance?
Yeah, and I am trying to recover. I think all of us go through the growing pains of like getting excited about stuff, and there's so much stuff, and it's easy to buy, it's harder to implement. And so the hype versus substance, I would say I've heard something a long time ago that said trust but verify. And so I think before you really jump into something, you have to verify the way that I do it. So if we're talking software, for example, I actually will try using it and implementing it myself before I ever even introduce the concept to my team and before I jump in with both feet for a vendor. And sometimes it's not a vendor that's misleading you. Sometimes it's just that they don't realize that you use things differently. You have a different system. So raters are a great example. Not every rater here in Utah is available. So for those that are just like insanely integrated with, Raider X, it really is a game changer for those agents who might be in California or Florida, wherever they are. But me in Utah, it doesn't even really apply to me. So once I start verifying that, that's the step that it kind of um, tells me whether or not I really want to jump in. But I think take the time. There's no substitute for taking the time. You just have to do it. And
Hmm.
that's the painful part because there's so much of stuff that we have to do on a daily basis. And you can't take anything for face value. Not that somebody's untrustworthy, but your agency is different than every other person's agency. When we talk about things like VAs, they come pre-trained in air quotes. And that's not to say that the VA companies are doing a bad job if you end up getting a VA that you don't feel like is trained. But the fact of the matter is, like I use HawkSoft, they couldn't possibly teach their VAs on my HawkSoft processes,
Hmm.
even with that one software. So I think realizing we're super unique and
Hmm.
you just got to do the work. You got to figure out how it fits in your agency, try it, test it, break it, figure it out, and then roll it out if it's a winner.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think there's very little that can substitute for just elbow grease in a process and just saying like I'm going to take the time to do this. Shortcuts are great if you're trying to get to the grocery store, but in business, I often find that you're cutting something out in that expedience. We just had a smashing success with our HawkSoft user group conference in Carlsbad, and right around the corner is the Agent Brokers United conference in Las Vegas, and so we're starting the conference season almost is upon us. Um, so maybe as a closing thought, this podcast usually focuses on technology. Is there any technology that people should be looking out for when they're at a conference like A.B.U?
There's always technology companies out there that are coming out and trying to help you. The one thing that you do have to watch out for is overlapping services.
Mm.
So when you're hearing this stuff, see if it's already being done. Check with your existing vendors if it's coming down, if it's going to happen. Um, but yeah, these shows are so important, and I encourage agency owners to bring their staff out because things that you think are going to work for the agency, you can't have a conversation with everybody. When you bring your staff out, they're going to be able to talk to the vendors as well, and they're going to say stuff that's going to maybe help your agency out. And honestly, if you have the buy-in from your staff before you even have the buy-in for you when you're buying a product, that's like half the battle. Like if they think that they're the ones who brought it to you instead of you're the one that's shoving it down their throat, they're going to implement it and they're going to get it out to the team faster.
Brent, how about you in the conferences that you're going to be attending this year? What are you hoping to learn more about?
Well, I mean, as I've gone through the dumb purchases that John was alluding to, he knew my background there. Um, I think sometimes we go into these a little bit bass backwards on technology stuff that John was talking about, because we go to these and we get that shiny object syndrome because there's so much cool stuff out there. And I heard somebody recently talk about AI this way, and they came to kind of a thought leader, and they're like, "Teach me what I need to know about AI. Like, what do I need to implement about AI?" And he's like, "What do you want to do?" They're like, "I don't know. I just want you to teach me about AI." And he's like, "Dude, you're thinking about this totally wrong." So I think that even just regular services that we buy,
Mm-hmm.
I think before we go to a conference like Hug or A.B.U, we should ask ourselves the question, like, what do we need to improve in our agency? And start with that frame of mind,
Mm-hmm.
because then you're going to start seeing those opportunities out there and not get distracted by stuff that you don't necessarily need to dive into. Um, Make a list of 10 things, narrow them down to like two. What are the two most important ones? And that could go a long way in um, holding off the tide of this shiny object thing that
Yeah.
I've been guilty of in the past. And I know I've got a couple of vendors that are probably upset with me right now because they're like, "Man, you bought it, you never used it," and I've put them on hold, and they're frustrated. It's because I've had to be like, I need to be honest with myself. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to pull back all of this stuff. I need to
Yeah.
hold it off and focus on one thing at a time and implement it and see it through. And that's kind
Yeah.
of what we're focused on now.
And I really appreciate I appreciate you guys' perspective on this question because I completely agree. I think that often what happens is you're in an exciting environment. You're traveling. You're in Las Vegas. Um, Maybe you did your one day of gambling and you beat the house, and so you're just in a really good mood. And then you encounter someone that's like, "Hey, here's the thing that's going to solve all your business problems too," and you're just like, "Yes, let's do it." Um, I I completely agree. I think bass backwards is the right way to put it, because technology shouldn't be about creating a problem and solving it for a customer. It should be about a customer saying, "I have this problem," and then the technology being like, "We address this if it fits for your agency." So I appreciate that advice, and hopefully our listeners internalize it. Go in with a plan. Don't go to the grocery store hungry. Have that shopping list. I think that's where we're gonna land this episode. I do want to give an opportunity. John or Brent, is there anything else that we should know about A.B.U or conferences that you think the listeners should hear before we close out?
I would just say there is a lot of options for conferences and stuff to go to. And again, I think last year people got a little burnt out on them. Personally, I've never gone to a conference that I didn't get something out of it. I take a positive attitude with me when I go into them, though. So I don't go in thinking like, "Oh, what are they going to do for me?" I go in like, "Oh, how am I going to make this conference work for me?" So a lot of times, even if it's just that one relationship that blows up into the best relationship I've ever had in the industry, or if it's getting a new piece of software or technology or company that's going to help me out. I'd hate when companies talk about ROI on a conference when they think that somebody was going to sign up like the next day. It may not happen. It may be like 3 months from now, maybe a year from now, but like showing up and making sure that they know who you are, and vice versa on the agency side, making sure that you've talked to the vendors and they know where your agency's at, and maybe they can help you out later. So
I was just going to say two things. Number one, Vegas is beautiful in the end of April, and beautiful weather. And number two, because I know John, this conference will have a level of authenticity that's definitely worth checking out. So I know it's late in the game because it's only a few weeks away, but it's definitely worth checking out if you're on the fence at all.
I love that. It's a perfect note to end on. Um, John Spaugy, Brent Thurman, thank you both so much for your time today. I really appreciate this opportunity, John, to get you to know you more. We've encountered each other at conferences, but being able to sit down and have a good conversation, really enjoyed it. And Brent, it is always a pleasure every time we get a chance to have you on here or just see you in person. Even though you're probably sick of me at this point because our future selves to spend a week together in California. And hopefully I beat you at pickleball. I don't think it probably happened, but I'm gonna put that out there. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives podcast. Thank you.